Denny, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Great. First of all, love the Wrecking Crew, love Immediate Family, love
Thank
all the
you.
work you've been doing. My question first is a general filmmaking question. You
Yeah,
have so many luminaries that you interviewed for Immediate Family, so
yeah,
many different stories you can jump off of. This could be, I don't know, a 10-hour
yeah,
series. And then,
yeah.
most importantly, the Immediate Family, their stories are interesting as well. When you
Yeah.
have so many different stories and so many hours of footage, what is the key to crafting an effective documentary where you can go so many different
Oh,
avenues?
yeah, yeah. Absolutely. I same thing with the Wrecking Crew. I had this the worst. It was worse with Wrecking Crew because when I started that, it took 19 years to make, and I was always constantly filming someone. And I remember my editor. We didn't start editing until 12 years into that film, and she goes, "You got to stop interviewing people. I can't put everybody in this film because you got to fall in love with the characters. That's the biggest thing. So you don't want 5 seconds of this guy and have 50 people in a film. You need to kind of fall in love and know the characters." And I said, "Well, I totally get that." I said, "But that's why God gave us DVDs." I said, "We got to have those outtakes." I'm recording history. I want to take a chance and always get as much as possible just in case something comes up. I didn't know it was going to happen. But when you start editing, you kind of have your beginning, your middle, and then in a sense, sooner or later you do. There were things like in Immediate Family that didn't come ever make it in the film. There was a whole thing about LPs and radio, how FM radio changed the rock and roll business, how LPs changed this business. And both of those things actually created helped the Immediate Family. These guys with their work knew, they became famous because of LP covers and sequencing on albums. Things were different. But sooner or later, you got to pull things back. And one of the rules of thumb was for us, if it doesn't have something to do with these guys, you can't put it in there. We got to move on. And when I started this film, I thought it was going to be called Immediate Family and Friends because I felt like, what, there's so many other guys we could talk about, the Jim Keltners, the Jeff Picards, Rick Moradas and Steve Lukethers and all these Dean Parks, all these other players of the time. And we had to leave them out because you just don't have enough time. And it made it focus. It ends up being focus. Part of that was COVID. COVID focused me. Once COVID hit, we aren't going to outside people. We're limiting now because by the time COVID hit when we started this, we had almost most of the stars in the can. And I still didn't have the main five characters in the band. So I had to slowly get them in safely. But I don't know if I answered your
Oh, you
question.
totally did. Also, this what I love about there's so many things to love about your documentary. I'm now on my Spotify. I'm listening to the Section albums. I am listening
Yeah,
to the Immediate Family. How
yeah.
cool is it for you to spotlight these guys, their lives, and then have their music with the Section and now with the Immediate
Oh,
Family out to the forefront? So,
oh, absolutely. What's great for me is I got to go rediscover some of that music. Some of that music I don't remember. And I'm of age, but some of the music I wasn't a fan of, maybe, and it's like I wasn't a big fan of Andrew Gold at the time. And then,
oh
I
yeah,
song, right? And then once I start playing the song, I went, oh my God, Waddy's killing it on that solo. I mean, there's certain things you go, it just wasn't my thing at that moment. Like the Section would have been my thing. I was totally into the fusion thing. And maybe I was just too young because I don't remember it. And
same
when I
here.
went back and heard those albums, I went, wow, that's my music.
Denny, where's what does your external drives look like? Because your external drives should be put in
Oh,
like the Smithsonian or some kind of museum as
yeah.
far as for posterity. And I hope to goodness you're keeping them really well on the cloud.
I am. I know. I just so it's funny you said that because I saw this. I thought about it yesterday when I opened up. I see all these tapes. Now I know most of it's on drives, but it's like, ugh, you got me nervous thinking about it.
You know,
Yeah.
oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, no, absolutely. I mean, that's the hardest thing about this technology is trying to keep it going.
Right. You alluded to the fact that the Wrecking Crew, it took you, what did you say, 12 years to make? And
19,
19. So what a,
19,
wow.
12 was when I started cutting.
Wow. Okay. So, and then how long did Immediate Family in general take you to make?
Four,
Okay. So
four
four.
years.
19 and 4, both long times. And I'm just wondering what kind of lessons and work ethic did you learn from your father? Because of your past interview, you mentioned how in the early days, your father would come home from the warehouse and
Yeah.
also sometimes he'd gig and then or actually work 8 hours on perfecting his craft. Did that kind of work ethic have a linear path as far as your own
Yeah.
work ethic? Yeah. So
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, it's really interesting you brought that up because I think the reason why I never gave up on the Wrecking Crew is because of the work ethic. There was this thing about what I did my whole life. I was constantly felt like, I didn't play an instrument because I didn't practice. I wasn't a writer. I went to school to write, in college. I wasn't a writer. A writer writes every day. A musician plays every day. So there was something in the back of my mind when Wrecking Crew, in the making of that, I thought, I don't want this to be on my tombstone as another thing I never finished. And I kept going and going and going and finally got it out in 2008. And it was such a great success, but no one would help us get it to the next stage, which was paying off the licensing. So that work ethic and understanding, I knew I had to get it out there because at that point I financially went too far. I had invested my life savings and my house and everything else. So the only way to do it is continue and pay off the $500,000. And that's what I ended up doing from 2009 to 2015 is just pay off the licensing with donations. But it was the work ethic that I learned from my father because that's the only thing I have right now. You know what I mean? In terms of, I understood how I was going to get there.
you were very self-deprecating in the fact that you're saying that you're not a musician because you don't practice. That's the bare bones of it. But you're a filmmaker, and I think of that moniker "immediate family," even though you are not a musician, just because that's from whence you came with your
Sure.
father, and also with these two documentaries. Do you feel like what's it like to have this family in your creative and most importantly personal life as well? How has that
Well,
helped you?
yeah, this is the best part for me is because, I understood when I was given the option to, or they gave me this idea and I said, and we pitched it to them. I said, I love it because the idea of family. I said, my original film, A Wrecking Crew, I open it up with, this is the story of my father and his extended family, the Wrecking Crew. I only knew musicians as family, even though my father's the only one in our family. But that's all I saw them do is hang. I never saw them play their instruments. I never went to work with my dad. He didn't play instruments at home, but they hung out at card games. They came over for dinner. There was a lot of laughter. And that's how I look at all these guys. I just love hanging out. I love being a voyeur with these guys. You know what I mean? Just hanging in the background. I'll carry their instruments. I'll do anything just to hang out with them.
So then a couple of questions. I have a curious question from your IMDb. It said back in 1982, you worked for the art department for the Beastmaster. Is that a
Oh my
correct
God.
credit?
Yes.
And here's the thing. Back in
Why is that? That's I go ahead.
yeah, so
It's so funny.
back in
That comes up so
82,
many times.
I love Don Coscarelli. What my podcast co-host, he loves the Beastmaster. So what was your experience like? And what am I missing in general?
I here's the thing. I think I worked on it 3 or 4 days. I think I worked making props. I don't remember what I did. For some reason, they take it off the credits of the movie. I get more credit for that. For people going, you were on the Beast fans, like I have no idea what the movie's about. Other than it's some fiction, some I don't know. Everybody that you're the third person within the last 6 months that said something.
That's
I have other
amazing.
stuff. I did other work.
What do you want to spotlight from your past?
Oh no, I'm just kidding.
Okay, okay.
No,
So
my other stuff is the other stuff that I'm doing is actually this thing called Hanging with Dr. Z, which is actually a comedy project with Dana Gould, the comedian, where he plays Dr. Zaius, and we interview some of the great comics of our day. But it's like a Merv Griffin show or a Johnny Carson show meets Fernwood Tonight. It's very bizarre,
how's
but
that
that's Hanging.
collaboration been with Gould and
Oh, it's
everything?
awesome. Oh,
Yeah.
it's awesome. They're the greatest. I love. It's the two things I love: are comedians and musicians. I mean, they're both basically the same type of person. One wants to be the other,
Yeah.
you know.
So, final question, Denny, is after watching The Wrecking Crew, and then immediate family. We want to ask you, the filmmaker, just to can you pick a movie that's one of your all-time favorite films, and what is it about the specific movie that resonates with you on a personal level?
Oh, that's a hard one, but I think I know this sounds crazy, but the reason I started, well, when I did the Wrecking Crew and I did it in immediate family, is the roundtable discussions. I use that all the time now in all my work. And why I like it is when you sit down with a bunch of people and you let them talk, it just comes out conversational. The film I love is like Diner,
Oh, yeah.
Barry Levinson's Diner. And then there's the other one is Woody Allen's Broadway Danny Rose.
Love that
You
film.
know, that scene of the guys talking about Danny Rose, the horrible manager, but they're all at a coffee shop, and they're zinging and bouncing back and forth with discussions about this guy. And that's exactly how I grew up, with these kind of musicians, just talking and laughing. And I always they're like, I call it musicians. It's like a quartet or quintet at a table, but without their instruments. They just
Yeah.
love to talk and they zing and they zab, and it's fun. So those are the films I kind of like, where it's real.
And Danny, I really loved Immediate Family.
Thank
Congratulations,
you,
and
man. I
thank you
really
so much.
appreciate it.
Okay.
Thanks, man.